Hi, this is Angela. In this session, I'll be covering some of the most common obstacles to Pilates that I come across. And it is a shame sometimes that people feel that they get to a certain point and it's lying in a position or trying to do an exercise is so hard that they actually move away from this type of exercise and don't really get to reap the benefits of what a regular practice will do for you. So with anything in life, we do have to modify sometimes for ourselves, and I'm going to just run through with you some of the things that you can do if you have tried doing Pilates and are finding that you just can't get past some of these obstacles. First one is being able to lie down comfortably. Especially if you do have a little bit of kyphosis, being in this lying down position will feel very uncomfortable because you really find that your head is going back like that. So first thing to do is make sure you've always got a towel or a pillow on standby, so when you're actually doing your practice, whether it's in the studio or from home, that you can actually find a comfortable position for your head. Just be aware that when you're doing this, you don't want this towel or pillow to be under your neck, because we don't want our head to be turned backwards and our neck kinked. You want to make sure that you're finding a position where the back of your neck feels nice and long, and that will be the most comfortable for you as well. So any lying down exercise like this you can do with a pillow under your head. The exception is when we're doing bridges, and these are the exercises where we lift our pelvis off the floor, so we're pushing a lot of weight down into this area. So just making sure that for these exercises, if you do have a pillow, you take it out, and then once you've done that, moved on to something else, you can bring it back in again. Okay. One thing I see quite often is people coming away from Pilates exercises having a very sore neck. And it can either be the front of your neck that's really sore or the back. Quite often, if it is the front of your neck that's the issue, it can be that you're actually pulling your head forward in some of the movements. So for instance, any of the lying down exercises where we're curling up, it's very easy to feel as if you're trying to lift yourself up towards the ceiling and you're leading with your chin. That puts a lot of strain in those front neck muscles and can be quite uncomfortable. So we really want to try and relax those. Putting a little bit of more of a tilt into your head, like you're balancing a tennis ball or an apple under your chin, will help. And keeping your eyes looking in a forward position, just where your knees are or between your thighs, will make that one a lot easier. So when you're curling up, instead of looking up at the ceiling, you're looking forward. Also, if you're doing some of those exercises where our feet are up in the air, rather than looking at your toes, try and keep your eyes or your glance, in that forward direction as well. If you're finding that the back of your neck is quite sore, just make sure that you do use your hands, just very soft fingers, just so that you're supporting your neck when we're actually doing these lifting exercises. And you'll find that with practice, this is one of those things that becomes a lot easier as well. So just be very controlled, very soft fingertips. If you're doing an exercise, say like hundreds, where ordinarily you would use both hands, with the move, try keeping one hand to support your head and just do the exercise with the other hand, and then just swap over every now and then. Okay, so that way you've always got one hand supporting your head, and you'll find that over time, as your neck gets stronger and stronger, you'll actually find that you need less and less support for those sorts of exercises. Another challenge that people often have when they're doing Pilates is getting comfortable in this position that we call tabletop. So think of this as if you're just hanging off the edge of a table with your legs. In this position, we want our knees to be directly on top of our hips. And this can get uncomfortable, especially when you haven't done this sort of exercise before. You'll feel it quite a bit on your legs and into the hip flexors. As you get better at this, you'll find that the core muscles become stronger, and they're able to actually support you quite a bit through this exercise. But in the interim, there are a couple of things you can do. Firstly, if you're doing this at home and you happen to have a chair nearby, you can actually just rest your heels on the chair. So I don't want you resting the whole leg, but just the heels. So that way you can still lift the foot and put it down, and over time you'll just feel that you're getting more and more comfortable. Make sure when you are doing this move that your knees are directly above the hips and you're not lifting your tailbone to get you into that forward position. there. Another thing that you can do, and it's very acceptable to do it in class, is to actually do the same move, but do it with your feet on the floor. So, you know, we can do curls like this, or we could do them like this. If you, instead of doing, say, an exercise like this where we're going in and out of tabletop, you can actually just alternate having a foot on the floor. And again, as you get stronger and stronger over a few weeks, you'll find that you can spend more time in the air with the legs, you know, because you do get quite stronger through those core muscles and learning to do the exercises with them switched on. So persevere with it. Do take the shortcuts. They're perfectly acceptable. And then you'll find that as you get stronger, this is one of the benefits of actually doing it. You do learn to actually hold your body in certain positions a lot better as your core control gets better as well. Straight legs. Now that can be a challenge for a lot of people, and if you're particularly tight through the hamstrings, either genetically or because you're quite stiff from not having done a lot of movement through there, you'll find that makes a lot of the exercises challenging. Especially when we're looking at some of the straight leg exercises where we're doing, say, things like scissors or these sorts of moves, it can actually create quite a lot of discomfort through here. To an extent, you can actually make this a lot easier over time with practice. So again, the consistency is what's going to help you most in terms of getting better with this. In the interim though, you can do the exercises with bent legs. We're still predominantly working through our core muscles when we're doing these exercises, so getting the legs straight is an added bonus, but it's not, you're still going to reap a lot of the benefits of the exercises when you do them with bent legs. So just bear that in mind, you know, rather than really, you know, persevering and making yourself really uncomfortable, just keep the legs bent as best as you can, and then you'll find over time, you'll get to the point where you do have the flexibility to actually to do them better. So please just persevere with it and just be very prepared to modify depending on what your body, you know, can and cannot do. Very often when we're in a seated position, and a lot of Pilates exercises are in, you know, sitting on our bottom, it's very uncomfortable for people to maintain what we call a neutral spine, which is just the natural curve of your spine. The body wants to go into this tail under position, and that makes it very awkward to do certain things because you need to be upright in order to gain the advantages and to be able to switch your core on properly. So in that situation, having that awareness of whether you're actually doing this is very important, especially if you're doing this from home, because you want to try and get yourself in an upright position as possible. And using a towel or a cushion under your bottom could sometimes be just what your body needs in order to help you, you know, sort of get into that position. So just be aware that lifting a little bit will help to create more of a curve in your back. So play with different heights of, you know, towel or cushion to find what works right for you. And then you'll see yourself that your chest opens up, your shoulders are back. When you're using your, you know, you've got your core switched on, you feel as if you're in a much more upright position rather than like this. Okay? So just have your little tools on standby when you're doing the classes. Knees. Quite often having soreness in our knees, either because of arthritis or because of a pre-existing injury, can make it very uncomfortable to do exercises where we're having to put weight on the knees, or, you know, planks, push-ups and so on. One thing, if you can get away with it, is to try having a cushion or a towel, placing that under your knees so that when you're getting into that movement, you know, that position or that exercise, it's just a little bit softer underneath. The other option is to try and do the same move up at a bar, or like a kitchen bar. I'm not suggesting you go to the local, but, you know, at your kitchen counter with a chair against a wall, and that way you can still get the benefit of some of the exercises, say, such as push-ups, but you're doing them against a wall rather than on the floor. It's the same movement pattern, but it just makes it a lot easier and without compromising your knees as well. Sore wrists can sometimes stop you from doing certain exercises, especially if it's very uncomfortable to get that degree of movement right through there. One thing you can do is to have, again, a towel or roll over your mat so that your wrists are higher than your fingertips. It means you don't have to have that same range of movement in the wrist, and you're also spreading the load right through the whole hand rather than the wrist. So that may be worth trying. Alternatively, again, coming up to a higher area such as a kitchen counter, a bar or a wall, and doing the exercises there may also help you. Lying down on your side can be quite uncomfortable, and that puts off a lot of people when we're doing Pilates, especially for some of the exercises like the double leg lifts or as a basis for doing side planks. It does require us to put a bit of weight up through that hip area. If you do have bursitis or an inflammation in your hip joint, that will be particularly uncomfortable, and it may mean that you perhaps avoid these sorts of exercises to start off with. But for most people, it is uncomfortable when you're first starting doing Pilates, lying in these positions, but it does get better with time. These sorts of exercises, which when you're first starting might feel really quite cumbersome, with a bit of practice, you do get a lot more engaged through the core muscles, and you do learn to switch on in a way that you're actually able to do them a bit more effectively. So please persevere with them. You will find they get easier. The towel is your friend here again, putting that under your hip if you need to just give you a little bit more of cushioning through that area, especially when you're starting out, just so you can get yourself in a comfortable position and then learn to do the exercise. Breathing. How can one thing that we do every day cause so much stress when we're trying to do it in combination with a Pilates move? I would like you to not stress about breathing when you're first starting in Pilates. It's a lot to remember, especially when your focus should be more on trying to keep that core engagement and learning to do the exercises with good alignment and repetitively. Once you've been doing Pilates for a few weeks, you can then get to the point where you have enough control through the movement that you can add this final element. Just keep in mind that when we do breathing in Pilates, we don't breathe all the way down into our deeper belly. We try and keep these muscles gently switched on as we're doing the exercises. So our breathing has to be more focused in the upper body, around the rib cage. So when you're breathing in, you should be feeling those ribs expanding outwards, sideways, into your back, and then as you're breathing out, feeling those ribs collapse. And then over time, you'll find that all comes together. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.